Welcome back to Dinar Community Channel. They laughed. They called it a scam. But overnight, the Iraqi dinar exploded onto the global stage, flipping the script, shocking the world, and turning quiet believers into overnight millionaires. The game just changed, and if you weren't paying attention, you just missed the biggest financial shift of our time. For years, the Iraqi dinar (IQD) was written off as nothing more than a speculative fantasy. Mainstream economists scoffed, financial analysts dismissed it, and most of the world simply ignored it. To them, the dinar was just another casualty of war-torn politics, economic instability, and false hopes. But to a quiet, persistent group of believers, those who held on despite the ridicule and the years of waiting, the IQD represented something more, a symbol of potential rebirth and the ultimate long-term play. And now, almost without warning, everything has changed. Overnight, the narrative around the Iraqi dinar has flipped. What was once labeled a scam or conspiracy theory has now caught the attention of global financial circles. The very currency that was mocked in boardrooms is now being discussed behind closed doors in high-level banking institutions. Why? Because something monumental has just happened, and it's sending shockwaves through the entire international financial system. It began with subtle movements, quiet shifts in policy by the Central Bank of Iraq (CBI), unannounced banking infrastructure updates, meetings with the International Monetary Fund (IMF), and diplomatic economic agreements that seemed routine on the surface but had deeper implications. Then came the digital reforms, the modernization of Iraq's banking sector, and a sudden transparency in their foreign reserves. Behind the scenes, Iraq was preparing. While the world was distracted by noise and chaos, Iraq was quietly laying the foundation for a new era. Then came the flip. Within a 24-hour period, whispers turned into headlines. The CBI confirmed new exchange rate mechanisms, a sovereign asset backing protocol was revealed, and Iraq formally announced the reinstatement and revaluation of the IQD. Investors who had once been laughed at were now scrambling to verify what they were seeing with their own eyes. The dinar had not only re-entered the global conversation, it had done so at a valuation that turned heads. For millions who once dismissed the IQD, this wasn't just a surprise. It was a wake-up call. At the core of this explosive shift was a revaluation rate that shattered expectations. For decades, the dinar had hovered in the undervalued realm, with an exchange rate artificially suppressed due to sanctions, inflationary policy, and international manipulation. But Iraq's internal growth, the stabilization of oil exports, the diversification of its economy, and its growing geopolitical relevance, was no longer ignorable. Overnight, the IQD revaluation reflected Iraq's actual economic potential, not its war-torn past. Analysts now call it one of the most aggressive and successful monetary turnarounds in modern history. The Central Bank of Iraq didn't just adjust numbers, they overhauled the narrative. By backing the dinar with hard assets like gold, oil reserves, and a digitized fiscal ecosystem, they created one of the most secure and potentially lucrative currencies in the Middle East. And this was no speculative pump. The IMF, World Bank, and BIS quietly nodded in approval through coordinated statements, not loud but noticeable for those paying attention. Chase Bank and Wells Fargo began issuing internal memos to select wealth clients, informing them of new exchange windows for emerging market currencies. Private redemption centers activated in cities like Houston, Atlanta, and Phoenix. In major global markets, Dubai, Singapore, London, whale investors began moving into dinar-backed bond instruments. This wasn't theory. This was reality. For early believers, the revaluation wasn't just financial, it was vindication. People who had held onto dinar notes for a decade or more, often mocked by friends and financial advisors alike, suddenly found themselves in possession of an asset whose value had multiplied. Some quietly booked wealth management consultations, while others simply stared at their bank screens in disbelief. The psychological impact of the IQD flip cannot be overstated. In a world of endless volatility, the dinar became a symbol of long-term vision rewarded. The financial mainstream had told everyone to look elsewhere, to cryptos, to blue-chip stocks, to precious metals. But while those markets bounced and crashed with emotional tides, the dinar was steadily, invisibly gaining strength. The rise of the IQD also speaks to a broader geopolitical transition. Iraq is no longer just a post-conflict state. It is a regional powerhouse. With China and Russia investing heavily in Iraq's infrastructure, oil and gas pipelines expanding westward, and the United States slowly restoring diplomatic engagement, Iraq has positioned itself as a central player in the future of global energy and trade. The IQD revaluation is just one chapter in a much bigger story. And what a chapter it is. The sudden change also brought a whirlwind of chaos. Not all banks were prepared. Many frontline tellers and branch managers had no idea how to process the new values or guide customers through currency exchanges. Online forums exploded with both legitimate information and wild rumors. Scammers began preying on confused holders, offering fake contracts or promising special, VIP rates. It was, and still is, crucial to be cautious, to verify everything, and to work only with regulated, licensed institutions. Yet despite the noise, one fact is undeniable: the IQD game has flipped. And those who paid attention before the shift now sit on the edge of financial transformation. This moment also raises questions. Why now? Why would Iraq revalue its currency so drastically and so suddenly? The answer lies in sovereignty. For decades, Iraq's economy was shackled to external control. From UN sanctions to currency auctions dictated by foreign banks, Iraq's monetary policy was not truly its own. But after years of restructuring, legal reform, and digital transformation, the government has reclaimed control of its financial destiny. Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani declared in a televised address that Iraq's new currency posture reflects national pride, economic autonomy, and a strategic repositioning in global markets. This was not merely an accounting decision. It was a declaration of independence. The IQD's rise will have ripple effects across the Middle East. Countries like Iran, Jordan, and even Saudi Arabia will now have to recalibrate their currency and trade policies. Global oil contracts may shift. The petrodollar's dominance could face new challenges. And countries with suppressed or undervalued currencies will watch closely, wondering if they too can engineer a similar awakening. For ordinary people, the lesson is clear: sometimes, the biggest opportunities are the ones that seem the most unbelievable at first. Thousands of investors are now seeking financial advice. What do you do with a windfall from an IQD exchange? How do you protect that capital from taxes, fraud, or poor planning? Wealth protection firms are seeing record inquiries. Trust and estate lawyers are being flooded with new clients. The financial awakening triggered by the IQD isn't just about numbers, it's about responsibility. And still, there are skeptics. Some say this is a temporary surge, that Iraq cannot sustain a high-value currency in the long term. But those skeptics miss the bigger picture. The revaluation is not about matching the US dollar or dominating global finance. It's about Iraq restoring its rightful seat at the economic table. The country has the oil, the gold, the people, and now, the monetary muscle. In hindsight, the signs were always there. When Iraq started repatriating gold reserves. When oil was traded in currencies other than the dollar. When the dinar was quietly listed on forex testing servers. When Tier 1 banks began onboarding exotic currency desks. The flip was not random, it was engineered. For millions who slept on the IQD, the realization now is bittersweet. Some are rushing to find notes on secondary markets, where prices have already spiked. Others are watching in disbelief, wondering how they missed the clues. But for those who believed, who studied, who waded through the mockery and uncertainty, this is their moment. And it's not over. The revaluation is just the beginning. Iraq's next moves, launching a digital dinar, opening sovereign wealth platforms, and aligning with BRICS banking structures, will push this story into even greater dimensions. Currency revaluation is not a singular event. It is the spark that ignites long-term change. And that change is already in motion. Those who called it a scam are now silent. Those who laughed at the dinar are now listening. The financial world has been forced to pay attention. Because the IQD game flipped overnight, and the game will never be the same again. Like and subscribe for more videos.